brought it up. The Raiders kept losing, kept pissing you off. They traded away Jacoby Myers also to Jacksonville. And then Jacksonville handed you a loss in overtime as well. Right as you were getting married, so that was fun. And that was an overtime loss. And then they turn around and lose 10-7 at Denver on the Thursday night game while you were on your honeymoon. So let's just talk about the Raiders last couple of weeks. Anything you want to add to that, to the story of your team?
I mean, I did prepare a little bit. Overall, all I could say is that it's an absolute disappointment. The whole season's been a disappointment. 3 games you should have won. The Chicago Bears, you should have beat the Chicago Bears. You couldn't get the kickoff. It gets blocked. That's how the game ends. So you give that game away. You're at home. The fans are there for you. They're cheering for you, and you soil yourself. You can't get the kickoff. You should have beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. You missed the opening field goal on your opening touchdown drive. You missed the extra point. And as soon as that happened, guys, I said, that's going to be the difference in the game. And sure enough, I went full Oracle, and it was forcing the offense to go for a 2-point conversion. The offense did their job. They marched down the field. They get a touchdown. They have to go for 2 points. And I totally agree with the call. Go for the win. Don't go for the tie, because the tie does nothing, because the whoever scores next wins. You just go for the win. They didn't get it. It gets blocked at the line of scrimmage. What sucks about that play, the Raiders had like 3 guys wide open on that play. And unfortunately, the Jaguars player made a hell of a defensive play. They get the win, but that's a game that you should have won. You shouldn't have missed an extra point. You had enough opportunities to put that game away. You gave that one away. And then you're in Denver on a short week. You get the Ashton Jeanty touchdown, and that's all you get. You miss the field goal with Daniel Carlson, which was it, 44, 45 yards or something like that. In today's modern NFL, that's essentially a chip shot. That should have been an automatic field goal. He missed it, and special teams coach gets fired after the game due to this. You see on the sidelines, Tom McMahon, the special teams coordinator, and Pete Carroll getting into it. Too little, too late. I know more heads are going to roll in the coming weeks, and in the off season, there's going to be a lot of turnover. But it's too little, too late. Those are 3 wins, guys, that could have put this team at 5-4. 5-4 feels a hell of a lot different than 2-7. At 5-4, okay, maybe you're still on the outside looking in. Maybe you don't think of yourself as a legit playoff contender, but you're hoping, can he keep it interesting? Can we just sneak in and get into a wild card and you get into the playoffs? Who knows what happens, right? It just feels different. You could see the building blocks of, okay, they beat the Jaguars, they beat the Broncos. They're closing out games. You could see the positives. At 2-7, there are no positives. The sky is falling again. And if you go onto the Raider boards, the Reddit, the YouTubers, the people in the streets are calling for Pete Carroll's job already. And I'm not advocating for that. The worst thing that this franchise could do is fire the general manager and fire the head coach. Do I think there needs to be changes? Absolutely. Not all the blame is on Pete Carroll and the front office. The offensive line is terrible. I mean, just historically terrible. Somehow this offense is worse than what Luke Getsy did last season. It's worse. That I never would have expected this offense to be worse under Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll, their coaching. And then you add the number 1 running back in college football. You spend that draft capital on Ashton Jeanty. And I wasn't like saying Geno Smith is an MVP candidate, but if he played as a top 15, if he was just mediocre, this Raiders team's a 5-4 team, and he has not been even mediocre. He's been awful. He's been like bottom 3rd in the league. with the amount of interceptions he has thrown. And some of them are not his fault. Some of them are absolutely his fault with bad reads and bad throws. So yeah, there's always the interceptions that bounces off a guy's hands, and that's unfortunate. We saw that last week. Jeanty should have caught a pass. It bounced off. It turns out to be a pick. Unfortunately, it's a pick. It's a stat line that goes on the quarterback. But there's 3 wins that they should have won, guys. Absolutely should have won. And then there's a handful of games where they didn't even get off the bus. I thought that was going to be a thing of the past where you're just laying down and getting blown out. Ultimately, the offensive line is garbage. The special teams has regressed massively. That was always something of a strength for the Raiders. Even in the down years, they've always produced really good special teams. They have not done that. Offensively, I did not expect them to be this bad. I thought they were going to be somewhere in the middle of the road. And their defense has been, I admit their defense has been up and down, but their defense showed out against the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, it was a 10-7 game. And the Raiders against the Broncos, it was nothing but a short field in the first half. Like, they were averaging the ball at midfield. You couldn't even get field goal points. Like, you score 2 field goals, you win the game, and you couldn't even do that. So it's just a clusterfuck. Heads are going to roll. I think I've seen enough. It's really hard to judge because the offensive line is so bad. There's no legit number 1 wide receiver. I know you got Brock Bowers, but the reason why I'm going to say Chip Kelly needs to go is because you're not even feeding Ashton Jeanty. Just in so many games, give him the ball 3 straight times. Give him there's been so many games he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry throughout the game. Give him the ball 3 times. Give him the ball 20 straight times. He's he's there for a reason. And then when Brock Bowers is healthy, you don't even target Brock Bowers. It's mind-boggling that you only really have 2 weapons on offense, and you go to Tre Tucker. You game plan that Tre Tucker's your legit number 1 option. Like, you're going to outsmart these defensive coordinators by going to Tre Tucker. Like, the reason why Brock Bowers fell to the Raiders was because of the injury. If he was healthy, he was going to be a top 5 pick. That's how good he is. He fell because of the injury, and you see the weapon that Brock Bowers is. You spend all the money, you spend all the capital in the draft to get Ashton Jeanty, and you don't even feed him the ball. Like, who cares about how many carries? He's 22, 23 years old. He's in the prime of his life. Feed him. This is the only blue chippers you have, and you don't do nothing. So, I mean, it's just absolutely disappointing. I've seen enough of Chip Kelly because it's not even that the talent level. This offensive line should be better. The run game should be better. You're not even targeting. You're not even scheming stuff up. If you're this creative as a play caller, if Kyle Shanahan had the same players, he would scheme stuff up. He would scheme guys open. And I'm not seeing that. And that's why I have had enough of Chip Kelly, because he's not even scheming guys open. And I mean, look, Brian Daboll just got fired, and he had Jackson Dart looking like a decent player. I know he got concussed, but the Giants offense was putting up points. Their defense was trash. They blew leads, but their offense put points on the board. We can't even do that. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy that we got a couple of guys and we can't even scheme those 2 guys to get 100 yards running and 100 yards receiving for your 2 offensive guys. No one else matters because none of them can do anything. So it's mind-boggling, guys.